Let's get to it, man. You shared with me the other day that you have some military history in your family. So tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so my family's history with the military is very mixed, dark, and complicated history. Both of my grandparents served in World War II. I have a few uncles that even got like medals and stuff from Vietnam. My mom was served in the Navy, and my cousin also enlisted in the Army. So the complicated part of it is, my grandfather on my mother's side was very proud of like his efforts in the war and just like what it meant to him. He felt a sense of honor in what he did and all that he had done. My grandfather on my father's side, however, almost didn't come back. He almost ended up staying in France because he said it was one thing with the enemy's trying to kill you. He had paranoia of just like constantly looking over his own shoulder because, from what his experience was, a lot of U.S. soldiers would shoot their own in the back. It was not as much of a brothers in arms feeling as my other grandfather had kind of explained, or he's like, he's still friends with all of his like people that he bunked with and things of that nature. And for my other grandfather, it was a much worse experience. Never wanted to relive it. Didn't like talking about it, and was very put about serving. Which, thinking about it like now, my grandfather on my mother's side is light skinned. My grandfather on my father's side is very dark. So just kind of, just two whole different experiences from just that simple skin tone difference. Then you move to the next generation of my father's side serving in Vietnam. Kind of a very similar experience. Very off put by how they were treated, how they were looked after, and just the overall experience in Vietnam. Then on my mother's side, my mother went to serve in the Navy, and I had a cousin who's also toured in Iraq, and one of my uncles served in Vietnam. I don't know my uncle's story from Vietnam, but my mother was sexually assaulted while in the Navy. My cousin was also sexually assaulted in Iraq. And so, again, my mom was very adamant about, like, even when she found out I was taking, like, ROTC classes, she was like, don't even think about it. Um, Even though my uncles had such a distasteful experience, they still was like, they still recommended it because they felt it could make a man out of you. Like when I was taking RC classes, I was considering Marines, Navy, or somewhere enlisting in the military, and they were much more receptive to it than my mother and my cousin. So, like I said, my grandfather on my mother's side always kind of talks about his experience in the war. It's like a badge of honor for him. And oftentimes, being around him, and even like when the whole family's around him, he talks about it. And like my mom and my cousin, they both kind of just, I don't want to say shut down, but just, they don't bring up their experiences when my grandfather's talking about his and kind of, oh, that'd be great, Oh, you can, ROTC, that's great. It's serving your country is one of the best things you can do. They'll wait till like he's not around to be like, hey man, don't let his experience fool you, kind of ordeal. So yeah, I've always had like a complicated. It's always been kind of a complex thing with. Well, for me, it was deciding on whether I was going to like enlist or something I was even going to pursue because my mom was always adamantly against it. While my dad's side of the family, even though their experiences was none too renowned or pleasing, they still were receptive to the idea.
Okay. It's it's kind of amazing, man, how similar and different our experiences always seems to be. And what I mean in the sense to where when I think about the military and my family and my experience with it too, was I never got to ROTC. I wanted to though, definitely at a point in my life. That's like as far as my dad got on it, before it broke all the way off to me. But I come from the military family where on my dad's side in particular, all his uncles on his mom's side were in the military. Uncle Rick, my Uncle Kenny, my Uncle Mac, and then on my dad's side, father's side, his dad was in the military. And I'm not sure exactly which branch. I think Army and Navy. I think my grandfather, Leonard Braxton II, was the Navy, and then like I said, Army for the other side there. So it's kind of been present in the sense it's a thing to do. Black men did in that time. I didn't have any of those stories though. Like the only person I got is my Uncle Rick, and he doesn't really necessarily talk about the military when we go fishing with each other and things like that, other than you know knowing how to tie a knot. And military type, secure type knot. He told me a few different things on that sense, and but the feeling and the stories that I've heard from them sides, a lot of them came back and never like mentally came back, and whatever it was for each individual, whether it was they came back with an illness, whether they came back mentally with something going on, or they were just kind of got a strange society on that side. And then I have a slight component on my mom's side in particular with my aunt Veronica and Uncle James most heavily. They were always a military family, very like well off, had the house out in the country, had horses, things in this little pond in the backyard. So it was always like the military can bring you good things in that light. And so I had the experience of almost joining the Marines, because that was the advertising that sold me on football Sundays, the few, the proud, the Marines. And when they didn't give me my shirt that I sent that postcard in for, I was like, the military ain't for me. But honestly, had they sent me just that little shirt, like I would have definitely at that time looked more into it because I was trying to see the world, trying to have a structured life. And so it was that for me. But I really didn't have like anyone telling me to do it or not to do it, more so than I had a few people just presenting it as an option. And it wasn't one that, like I said, I felt like I got pushed in as much as I seen others get pushed into, and when I seen them get pushed into it, it was more, this is your best option.
And so, like, for really the first time, I had to actually really consider and sit down and think about outside of football what I want to do. And my answer couldn't be fuck hoes and have fun. And, we're very similar and opposite. I've never seen myself in a structured environment. Like, I've never seen myself in a system of rinse, wash, repeat. So, going to be business administration or something of that nature, I just couldn't. So then, I'm like a lawyer, and I was like, nah, you know, I don't like the law that much to like, commit 8 years of my life to learning and practicing. I thought about becoming a police officer, so law enforcement. I was like, I could maybe change. I could turn the tide there. And I was like, I need something that had to be loose and with range. Like I can't just be doing one thing. That was my big thing. I really sat down and thought about it. And I was like, so what does football translate to? I'm like, I'm very coachable. I'm very good at taking in information on the spot and having to configure and figure out and interpret what it means. So I was like, well, sure. I mean, the military is a lot of shit you got to learn on the fly. It's a very coach like kind of thing where miscues and failure is not heavily like tolerated. Because that was another big thing. I didn't want to go somewhere where I get in there, I show people like I'm very competent, and now they don't want to fire me. Now I'm just running this place however I feel I can run it. I didn't want to get into a situation like that where I'm literally like I can abuse the system or like how we was at
Cricket
the
tactic.
factory. Yeah. Like I don't want to get somewhere where I'm like, yeah, man, I'm smarter than y'all niggas for real.
How did I know? How did I know?
Yeah, and I was like, that's not gonna be good for me because there's no growth in that. I'm not really fulfilled. I'm just abusing the fuck out of a system because y'all just let anybody walk up in here. I was trying to figure out like what could really translate for me that would just keep me engaged. And I was like, well, it's law enforcement, it's military. There was nursing, but the thing was, I was like, bro, I ain't changing. I ain't cleaning up shit. Like, I'm not going to school to clean up shit. Like that's, which was a big part of. I'm like, yeah, no. Then also, I was like, if a motherfucker die on me, I'm not sure how I would take it.
Mm.
So that was the other part to that. So nursing was out for me. I get cool. I get cool with a patient, and they fucking die on me. You know, I'm gonna need to take a couple weeks off.
Imagine being
Um,
in the military.
yeah, you know, I cause like I thought about that too. Like getting tight with people, and then motherfucker get blown up. That's some
Blown to
traumatizing shit.
pieces. Blown to pieces at that. Like it's not a video game, man.
Yeah. So I mean, that was in my consideration too. And same like law enforcement. I'm riding with somebody and then they get shot or something on the job. Yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit fucked up for that. Then the other thing I thought about was coaching. I was like, well, if I can't play football, I can still coach it. That's kind of what brought about the conversation. And when I first introduced the idea, my mom immediately shut it down. She was just like, no. And that's what she told me about her experience in the Navy. And initially, that scratched it off my list completely because I was like, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to think about that shit and like be ready to fuck somebody up over, projecting. See, you talking to a woman a little too aggressive, that's just immediately where my mind's going to go. And she told my dad, and my dad came to me about it, and he was like, you know, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not a bad idea to consider it. A lot of our family served. It's like, yeah, that's what made me think about it because I remember my uncles, Lester, and all them, they talked about it and they got pictures. And, it's like literally on their mantles when you come in their house, it's like the picture of them in the military. So, like, it meant something to them. My grandfather had always talked about it from like when I was like little, like 6, 7. But to me, they just telling stories. It wasn't really until I got into high school that actually I had to like take into account what they were saying versus I don't know he's telling that story again.
That's incredible. The idea of you coming into military kind of stemmed from you having a realization, what will life be like without the football? How can some of these skills translate?
Mm-hmm.
And you played football into college and further, and much deeper than I did. Right? I played football for a couple of years. Watched football every Sunday since I was like 8 or 9. You know what I'm saying? So the military was really heavily put on me because of those commercials. The Army had a commercial, the Navy had a commercial, the Air Force had a commercial, then the Marines had a commercial. And like those are the four branches that really got put out. Every now and then you see something about Navy SEALs. And I remember being confused on like what that even was because I'm like, are they Navies? Or former Marines used to be Navy SEALs? And that was one of the first things I realized that people can like change branches and serve and all that other jazz. And so like all that shit was cool to me. Love military movies. Saving Private Ryan is one of my favorite movies. Play of Duty, all this other jazz. And understanding that like military is a part of that history. These are the people that really sacrificed their lives, their bodies for all these great things that we now get to
Well,
enjoy.
so I'm smiling and laughing because, man, again, it's it's an interesting dynamic for me with anybody because the more I like talk to people, the more I realize it's more just a me thing. Apparently, all black people have seen white movies. I'm just the one that hasn't. So like you like Saving Private Ryan, I'm like I've never seen that movie,
Tom Hanks,
but I've seen Medal of
Matt
Honor,
Damon,
Cuba Gooding.
Van Diesel. What's a couple other people I'm forgetting in that movie?
I've seen Glory.
I've seen Glory.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's just like you said, Saving Private Ryan. I don't even know another military movie to see.
so those two movies particularly are very, very interesting, and I can tell you why I said Saving Private Ryan and didn't say Glory as far as wanting to be in the military. And it's the stories. It's literally in the title: Saving Private Ryan versus Glory. Saving somebody implies that somebody lives. Glory is just a good story. Them niggas dead. You know what I'm saying? And that was the thing why I didn't mention that because Glory, it's a great story, but it's a story saying what they died for.
Right.
Where Saving Private Ryan is saying, yes, somebody died, but I'm living for that person. This person saved me. Now I'm honoring this person in my life. And same story, same like goal to get through appreciation for military things that they went through. Obviously, completely different actual stories, but similar message, different stories when it comes to just straight up appreciation for militaries, battles that were fought, and things of that nature. That's really kind of why I wanted to join the military, even at a younger age. And we were taught and raised on so many of the old ways because nobody from the old times seen this shit coming. The military for me was a way of, at a point in time when I was younger, of like staying ahead of the curve. I was like, well, shit, if anybody gonna have technology, it's gonna be the fucking military. They didn't film commercials. Like the way they put the media in front of us, the way they glorified how sweet and cool it was to tote a gun and save the world, whether it was fighting robots, whether it was going back and saving people and saving Private Ryan, whether it was just having a moment of glory. It's constantly been put in front of us of like, go fight, go fight, go fight, go fight. I'm 30 something now, so a part of what I don't want to do now at the age and time of my life is go fight. I ain't that same youngin that didn't have anything to lose, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? I got kids and all this shit now. So I ain't got that spunk because I got like a lot to lose. But there are things definitely still that I'm willing to fight for, willing to die for. And it's so interesting looking back that because of movies, because of all this other influence, that life could have went just so differently if the opportunity would have just been
Well,
presented in a different light. Because there are so many times that I just like, man, just go to the Air Force, just go to the Air Force, just go to the Air Force. Just like, fuck it. Like, especially after I finished school, it's like, bro, now what? Like, just go to the Air Force.
it was funny
Um,
kind of that you said how you said it because after a certain age, after certain experiences in life, the script flips a little bit. When you got that spunk, is a lot of shit you willing to fight for, and now that we're older, got kids, and we got shit to lose, it's now we got stuff that we're willing to die for.
mm,
So while those two may sound very similar, they also kind of stand on completely different meanings.
mm,
Um,
absolutely.
my grandfather on my dad's side, was willing to fight for this country, but he wasn't willing to die for it.
Mm,
Especially like after his experience. As to my grandfather on my mom's side, was willing to die for this. If things had gone for the worst and they didn't make it back, my granddad on my father's side would have regretted enlisting. My grandfather on my mother's side would have died in honor.
Now, that's a very good point. Like you said, the distinction between the two, because a lot of people are willing to fight if they believe they can win and are
Right.
not going to die.
Right.
But it's a whole different thing to be willing to fight if you know that you can die as a result of it. It gets easily conflated because you're willing to sign up and get sent to war, then it's like, oh yeah, you're willing to die for this country. But that ain't necessarily what people believe. Some people believe they fight a just war. Some people believe sign up that they gonna get over there, they're gonna fight, they're gonna kick some ass and come back and be able to brag about it. They signed up because they were willing to fight for it. And they were convinced to always be willing to fight for it. If they had a chance or even be asked that distinction, that are they not just willing to fight for it, but willing to die for it, it it would shake them a little bit. It might hold them up. Or if they thought about not even the fact that they were willing to die for it, but just the difference in what it meant when they did die, who was affected, how they were affected. If they knew that they would die for this country and then they people not be taken care of after their death. That's even why some people want to die for the country. And most people, whether they serve or not, will probably say this about all members who do serve, is that if you serve for this country and you die for this country, it is this country's duty to take care of your family. We owe that to you. Most people think that's what happens. You serve for this country, you get hurt in war, you come back. They got the Wounded Warrior Project, they got VA associations. And so people assume that they're taking care of all their needs, but don't realize that we have politicians defunding these organizations, making it harder for our veterans to actually get the help and things that they need. And had they known, like some of our people in particular, yours, mine, did learn through going over to fighting the wars and then coming back to this country, being able to brag and say that you fought for our freedoms that we are here now living under, and yet you can't exercise them because of your skin color, or because of just how much money you got in your bank account, or because of shit you've been through and shit you've seen, and now you have nobody over here willing to help you. Like, that's shit crazy. Are you willing to fight for it, or are you willing to die for it? Are they the same to you, or are they not? Particularly now, at the end of the day, these are people's lives. And I'm willing to fight for a lot of things in this country. I'm willing to die for a lot of things in this country. But one thing I wasn't willing to do is put on a uniform and express that, because I didn't want my message to be conflated to no capacity about all the things that I was willing to die for versus being willing to fight for. And that ain't no shot to anybody who does put on that uniform, because this is a great country. It's a great honor to even serve in the military and have those convictions and want to fight and die for whatever you believe you're fighting and dying for. Quite honestly, I wish it was mandatory so that people did understand what people do have to fight and die for, what is necessary to fight for and what is necessary to die for, and that they're not all the same. And just because we're fighting and risking now and death of some people for whatever, the ends don't always justify the means. They can easily get conflated. But we can go on that all day, all day, all day. In the sense of our conversation, where it started, where it went through, and where it is now. What are you willing to fight for versus what are you willing to die for? Are they
I
always the
understand the
same
difference.
things? Or if you had to put a list together of all the things you're willing to fight for versus all the things you're willing to die for, how many things would show up on both lists? Make a third list. How many things you are not willing to die for? How many of those things show up on your fight list? But that's the Nappy homework for the people who listen. Do that for us. Share your thoughts and ideas, and catch us again. Any last words for you, Jay?
Well, I was going to say, I guess it can add to the Nappy homework is, now I want you to think about that list and think about your ancestors, your forefathers, the people that fought on the front lines, and think about what they're willing to die for.
Mm. What they lists look like.
There's a lot of people that was on that march that was just like, okay, yeah, man, we just gonna step along to the bridge. Ain't no, wow. There was also a lot of us that knew, best believe, they gonna try and kill us.
Hmm.
Showed up on time, also ready to motherfucking march, because,
Those people chose to be in the front,
right.
and other people chose to be in the back. Mm.
Also, an interesting thing that kind of never gets talked about is a lot of people that started that march did not finish
Amen.
willingly. There were some willingly that just, okay, yeah, I'm out. This is my stop.
Correct.
And then, like you said, there were some of those that didn't finish unwillingly.
Mm.
But again, they knew the assignment. The march has to go on.
Amen. Mm. It's the gospel if I ain't never heard it. March on. Keep marching. Keep it nappy. Until next time.